an idea that's really a misconception about what therapy is. So, they're either afraid that they're going to be told what to do and they can't do it. They are afraid that the therapist is just going to bang on about how they're feeling for the majority of the session, and most guys will absolutely struggle with that. But the other part of it is this, am I going to do the Woody Allen, will I be in therapy for the next 20 years and still be as struggling with life and my relationships like the day that I came into therapy? And I often find myself reassuring that there is a significant difference between art and reality in this space, and that ultimately a large part of my job is to help him as a client to gain greater self-awareness and flexibility and resilience to be able to evolve as a human being, not just as a male, but as a human being. And so, we have this need then to really re-examine some of those issues. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply at this stage into the whole issue about how patriarchy has really influenced how we think and how men operate and what masculinity is about. I'll probably do another one of those at some other stage. But what I do want to talk about in this is the key impacts of patriarchal socialization on men. And the first thing that I really need to bring up is that for a lot of us brought up in our culture as men, one of the things that we're most susceptible to is our experience of alienation and isolation. I mean, when I look at boys, in their peer groups, the last thing they want to experience is being ostracized from their peers. It is an extremely difficult experience from them. So that alienation operates on a number of levels. The first one is an alienation from nature. And I think that's very, very important. We have this attitude of ownership over nature rather than stewardship, and it's a very removed experience. The second form of alienation, I think that's really important, is that we have a propensity to feel alienated from other people. We may be digitally really well connected, but in many respects and in many instances that there's very little authentic interpersonal connection. And those connections have often been commoditized. In other words, they're transactional and they tend to be shallow. So if I'm going to put it really bluntly, it's like I'll love you as long as you give me sex, okay? Now, a lot of guys will go, ooh, shock horror. And this true, because one of the myths in that space is that all men are really interested in is sex. That's actually not true. Most men are actually highly sensitive underneath the mask that we wear, and we come across as being, strong, stoic, and emotionally, distant as a protection. This is not our nature. When I work with men and they do truly get in touch with what it is that they're feeling, it's often a real rush and they get overtaken by that emotion, and it takes them a bit to get sort of anchored and grounded. So the problem with that alienation is that we often are in a relationship with our partner, but we don't feel connected, and the same thing happens with kids. Now, the third sort of alienation that we experience, and this is an idea that Marx actually talked about, and no, I'm not a communist or socialist in that sense. I'm apolitical, I'm a humanist, so let's keep that in focus, is our separation from creativity. I can't tell you the number of times that I've worked with men in highly academic positions and in corporate life whose deep down dark desire is to do something manual, woodwork or, mucking around as a mechanic in cars, something like that, paint, play music. And in a lot of their families, those sort of pursuits were deemed to be not up to speed. So, you had to be a lawyer, doctor, or, something like that. You couldn't be a musician because, that doesn't pay the bills. So there's a lot of often, shame attached to that attempt to express that desire. Now, the fourth and the most crucial alienation in that process is ultimately from ourselves. And this happens, and it begins to happen at a very early stage in our development. Things like, stop crying, it's not as bad, man up, or, even like, oh, well, boys will be boys, all that sort of thing, gives us the message that somehow we are not good enough in a way. That shame seeps into our psyche. So therapy, in closing, for this part, because I'll go in our next podcast into the second part of this whole story. The real point, in my view, of therapy is ultimately to allow ourselves to engage much, much more deeply in growing as a human being and understanding myself to the best capacity that I can achieve. And also to be able to feel safe and secure in my relationship with myself. Because unless I do that, I will never feel safe and secure in relationship to other people or my environment. Now, sometimes the environment is so bad that I'm not going to feel safe and secure, but I'm going to be able to make decisions that allow me to risk manage it better. Okay, so just some food for thought. In the next episode, I'm going to continue with this, and I'm going to look at some of the sort of legacies of our patriarchal socialization that makes it difficult to really engage more fully. And then I'm going to talk about actually how therapy needs, in some respects, to adapt to men better, because I don't think overall we've done a particularly good job of that. Okay, some food for thought. Look forward to speaking to you again. If you've got any feedback, let me know. I'm always open to a good, meaningful and respectful conversation. Till next time, this is me signing off.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change with Gunter. Gunter Swoboda does individual and group coaching for men looking to grow. For more information on this and the global Making Good Men Great movement, check out goodmengreat.com to get into contact. If you have a topic for the show or would like to be a guest on the air, please email producers at miranda@noirtainment.com. That's Miranda, Miranda, at noirtainment, noirtainment.com. Thank you, and always keep inspiring change.